Hello everyone. We're here to talk about music and mental health today. So thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be joined by Sam DEROSA and Cassadee Pope. You're here! Welcome!
I'm here.
Yay!
Fantastic. Thank you both so much for joining me today. So first of all, just like to say welcome to everyone who's watching. Welcome to the ASCAP experience. We are here today to talk about music and mental health in a changing world with two amazing women, Cassadee Pope and Sam DEROSA. They're here.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
So our topic today is music and mental health, as I mentioned. And this is a topic that's incredibly close to my heart. I've spent most of my career researching or working with artists or charities and music organizations, trying to find ways that we can support musicians with their mental and physical health, so that we can prevent anybody having any issues that can be career limiting or career ending. So to do this, I've done a number of things, but earlier this year, I published this book, Sound Advice, with journalist Rianne Jones, and we were incredibly lucky. We got all the major labels in the UK to support it financially, as well as a number of other organisations, and we are working currently. I'm doing the edits at the moment for a US version. So if anybody wants to be kept updated about that, please follow at Sound Advice Book on social media. We'll keep you updated. I also have a podcast. I do research. I have a whole number of things. Podcast is Elevate Music Podcast, but we can talk about all this in due course. So obviously we are here to talk to these amazing ladies about their experiences with music and mental health, specifically, well, not specifically, but particularly over the last 18 months. So I wondered if, first of all, ladies, you could introduce yourselves just before we dive in. So yeah, Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Sam DEROSA. I'm from New York, living in LA. I'm a singer-songwriter artist, member of ASCAP, honestly, since I started doing music. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Amazing. Thanks, Cassadee.
Yeah, I'm Cassadee Pope. I'm a singer-songwriter based here in Nashville, and I have really just gotten into mental health and therapy over the last, well, probably 2017 was when I really dove in. So I dove in head first, full-fledged. I read all the books and do therapy still to this day. So I'm really happy to be doing this with you guys at ASCAP.
Amazing, thank you. It's such an incredible process, isn't it, when you actually see it firsthand what it can do. I've also been in therapy intensively for the last year, and it's really just been incredible to see the actual changes.
Yeah, and the tools you're given to, face those moments where you didn't know how to handle things before, and you're actually in that moment, you're like, oh my gosh, I actually know how to figure this out. It's pretty empowering.
Mm-hmm. So just to start off, I wondered, for musicians, the last 18 months has been so incredibly difficult. And I wondered if we could just start by just checking in with how the period has been for you both. What you found particularly challenging, and also whether it's affected your identity as a musician. Yeah, Cassie, do you want to start?
Yeah, I've definitely gotten to a better place. I think when the pandemic first hit, for all of us, it was a jolt. I had tour plans like a lot of other artists, and not even just that, but plans to get in the studio and cut a new project. So when all that went away, like everybody else, I was just kind of confronted, with what's my purpose? Who am I without my career? And I was sort of disappointed in myself. I think we all kind of, we think we're a lot healthier. And then when we're confronted with something, a challenge, we kind of are reminded we're always a work in progress. And so I was confronted with that, and was a little disappointed in how much of self-worth I put into my career. So that was a really big challenge for me throughout the year, just realizing I'm worthy of love and praise for the person I am, not just the music that I do. So that was a process. I eventually did start writing on Zoom, which really helped because I find a lot of therapy through songwriting. But now that I'm sort of on the other side of it, and we're kind of straddling a line of things are getting back to normal, but now things are getting scary again. I do have a little bit of anxiety about that we could end up back to where we were last year. And that gives me, that just gives me anxiety. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get past this, but I also am sort of, it's triggering in a way to see things kind of get a little scary again, honestly.
And I think that uncertainty has been so difficult to manage, hasn't it? It's nobody ever said at the beginning, okay, it's going to be 6 months and at this point it'll be over, you know, and actually obviously it ended up being much, much longer. I mean, I remember working with artists and people saying, well, gigs will be back in September. This was last year, you know, and look at where we are now, and we could never have imagined it. And I think, you know, from the artists that I work with, I've seen it. It's been that sort of, yeah, we're starting, things are improving. No, they're getting worse. You know, the back and forth of like, when is this going to actually be over? When can we actually really get on with our careers? Sam, is this something, you know, what Cassadee said? Are these things that you've experienced too?
Cassadee, I love what you said about realizing how much of yourself was defined by you being a musician. Because I think that's probably, anybody on here probably feels the same, is when you do what we all do for a living and everyone in the do, I think it's this thing where you wake up every day like, okay, how can I be successful? And when the world is completely frozen, you start to go, okay, well, now what? Because, oh crap, should I have tried harder in 2000? You start, I think I started that myself. Like, what would have happened if NBC Songland was in 2017? Would I already have, would I have toured already? Would I started kind of getting a guilt trip in myself and not even realizing the beauty of being able to just sit home and take time with myself, which I think none of us really were able to do for the first 3 months. I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but most of us thought this was like a little cute 2-week vacation. We're like, oh, sick, like don't have to go to sessions, can spend time with my family and like just live my life for a bit. And then it became, wow, I miss it so much. Wow, this is so woven into who I am. Wow, who am I when I can't play music, write songs? What do I do? And then it became, am I a good songwriter? Oh, do I suck? Can I only write in person? I feel like I was like, okay, how many Instagram lives can I do to try to feel like I'm playing music? You know, like I was just really with it too, but I love everything you said. I really relate to that.
I relate to you too. I mean, and it's also that element of like, oh, and the world is ending. People are dying. Like it was just a lot of shitty things happening all at the same time. So, you know, creatively stunted is like kind of the way I was feeling for a while, for sure.
And how did that affect your motivation overall? Like, did you both carry on practicing? And I mean, obviously you said your creativity was stunted. At what point did that start to come back? Was there anything you did to bring it back, or did it just come back organically over time?
I think I just, it took me about 3 weeks from when everything shut down, to just decide I was going to join the Zoom crowd and do Zoom sessions. I was really trying to avoid it, but I needed to write. And I think I had a goal in mind. I had time to sort of think about, well, now that I have time to sit and think of what the kind of project is I want to make, let's be intentional about it. I'm going to like do sessions with people that really help aid in that sound. And I wanted to do a pop punk country record. And so I just ended up writing with like my friends that I toured with back in the day and people that were in bands and people in LA and New York and obviously here too. But I think having a goal in mind and not knowing when it would release, not knowing even if it would come to fruition, but having that goal set was like really monumental for me to have the motivation. Because, you know, usually when you make a record, you're like, and then I'll just release it. But then you're making a record during a pandemic, you don't know when it's going to end. So you're just doing it for the fun of it, and hopefully people get to hear it someday.
Sam, did you have a goal setting process, or how did you find that whole experience?
Yeah, I thought I would be writing a whole album during the pandemic, and instead I put one out, and I had a lot of writer's block, which was really tough because I just kind of struggled with really just being stuck at home, and I struggle with hella anxiety, but I'm very high functioning where if I have a day off, it's like my eternal hell. I don't know how to just sit down and relax. Like I'll start fights over the dishes in the sink with my boyfriend just because I need something to freak out about. And so I really struggled for a bit. And I feel that now that I've just come to terms with, okay, it sounds really strange, but the more I tell myself that everybody is going through this, and the more I tell myself this isn't about me and I'm not the only person, the more I think I feel a lot more human, and I'm so much more in tune with my mind and the things I want to say. And I've stopped trying to write, and they just kind of started coming again, kind of what Cassadee said, how it's therapy. This year has really made me go backwards in a way where I hated it for a while, music. And then I was like, man, who were you when you were 8 years old in your bedroom and no one knew anything about you and you didn't have to try so hard? I just went back there mentally, like, okay, Sam, none of these matter. Just go because you have to, because you can't help yourself and you need to write and you need to sing. And that is actually how I flipped it a little bit in my head. And now I feel like I'm writing the best songs I've ever written. And I did see someone ask a question that I thought was really cool. Someone said, Cassadee, how has motherhood been during this pandemic? If you're comfortable to talk about that, as a woman who's in business and writing and crushing it, I think that's a really cool question to ask, because I'm sure your mental health was affected in so many ways, but add that onto it. I'm just curious if it's okay if I ask that. I see a lot of people asking that.
About motherhood?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a child, so I don't
Yeah,
know where that's
like how's
coming
motherhood
from.
and what's motherhood? Like does she have a baby that I don't know about? Or like is it an inside joke with your fans? I'm just like honestly trying to figure it out.
I saw a couple of mom comments, and I know
Yeah,
that that's like a trendy thing to call somebody that you're a fan of mom, which I've never quite understood. But I also, maybe they're talking about my dogs. I don't
is that what it
know.
is? Are they asking about I'm like, I don't think she has a baby. Should we ask? Like, is there a dog?
No, not yet, not yet. Just
I love
dogs,
your
and
followers
yeah.
so much for those comments. I'm like, I don't think she's a mom, but I can ask. Like,
I did see one thing, and I was like, I wonder. I think they're just making a joke. I don't know, but someday.
that's amazing.
So good.
One thing that we really touch on in the book, and it's something that ASCAP member Imogen Heap has spoken about a lot in the book, is about this defining your idea of success and what success means to you. I wondered, has the pandemic changed your own personal concepts of what success means to you?
I was just gonna say, for me, I think I've realized that I used to put this numbers game on what it meant to be successful, and I realized there's no metric to it. If you can wake up, like, there's little things that I think we take for granted, right? Like, for me, when my hot water isn't turned off, I think it's a successful morning. And I've realized the beauty in like the really little things. So for me with music, success to me is waking up, doing a little morning routine, and just buckling down and trying. And if I get a song, I'm successful. It doesn't matter if it comes out. It doesn't matter how many people love it. For me, it's just if I can make little Sam happy, that's what I call her sometimes. If I can just like set out to do what I started, then I feel like I'm successful. And I think that's what 2020 taught me, is just, okay, this is the reminder that if no one else were to hear it but you, would you still care as much? And I think that's really what it means to be a successful musician, is we all have this gift inside of us that we started because we had no choice but to just use it as therapy. And I really believe it's a gift. So I think if I can finish it and I can do it and it makes me happy, I've succeeded.
I
I
love
love
that.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree, because it's, you're at the end of the day, you're left with yourself, and obviously if you have a partner, if you have a community of people, if you have family, that's amazing. But I think underestimating how much loving yourself is and how important that is, it can be dangerous, because there are moments where I'm so happy in a relationship, and and we're there for each other. We have open communication, but I have moments of loneliness that aren't because I'm alone. It's just, we have these moments where our mental health kind of does a backflip, and we're like, oh, okay, so I need to work on that. Why does this trigger me? So I think during the pandemic, and somebody was asking about like the fact that this conversation's really a mental health conversation also about the pandemic. And I think that that's a really great conversation to have, because a lot of us have had obstacles through that time and still are kind of dealing with the aftermath. But I think my level of success really is based off of, like you said, Sam, listening back to a song and whether I'm proud of it or not, whether I care if it does well or not. And I think just comparing, doing music in the past to how I'm doing it right now, I put a lot of pressure behind how many numbers it would generate, how much money it would make, if country radio was going to play it, if this artist posted about it or whatever. And now I'm finding myself not caring at all about any of that stuff, because I am doing something really authentic and fun, and it's making the little Cassadee happy. I totally feel that. I think if anything, I got closer to her during the pandemic. So yeah, I think success is different for everybody. And yes, any sort of acknowledgement or validation from the outside world is great, but I think you have to start with yourself. And because no matter what, like if you do something that's not true to yourself and you get everybody validating you, you're never going to be satisfied, because you're just going to keep wanting that feeling and chasing that feeling, and you're going to realize it's really within yourself that matters the most.
Yeah. And I think we don't realize until we are somewhat in it. And obviously, I mean, Cassadee, truly, 6 months, that song when you were in your band Hey Monday, I listened to as like a young kid. Like, I genuinely have loved you a long time, so I'm nowhere on your level. But I have to say, oh yeah, my little sister's dying that you're on this live and I'm here. But but I really mean it when I say, if anyone is watching and you're all here and you're members of ASCAP and you're a songwriter and you're a musician and you're like, damn, how do I get to where this person is or this person is? I think the measure of success can't matter, because you realize that there's no one moment that makes you or breaks your career. And once you think that moment happens, you realize that it's just one little notch in the belt, and you just have to keep going. And I think it's peaks and valleys and it's seasons. So long as you see this as, I can't do anything but music, I think that's where you realize you are successful, because you've made a choice and you're going to wake up every day and do it. So find what works for you, find what you don't enjoy. And that's what I've been trying to do this year, is like, what makes me happy, what doesn't make me happy. And when I'm not happy, how long can I live there, and when can I figure out ways to get out of it? I think that's really important.
Totally.
That's such good advice. Cassie, this is actually something I wanted to talk about next, is that obviously we've covered how challenging this period has been. I'd love to know, obviously we mentioned therapy so far, like what have been the greatest tools that maybe you found to help you cope that maybe you didn't use before, or maybe they were your tried and tested and you knew that actually this thing was going to help you? I'd love to hear what those are, if you're happy to share them.
Gosh, there's so many. I think my main thing and things that trigger me stem from worthiness, not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough for people to stay. Because I had my parents divorced when I was a kid. My dad left. There was some trauma that happened when I was a kid within the household that I'm actually just starting trauma therapy for, which has been amazing. But the work that I do and the tools that I have are really based around looking at a situation and seeing what's fact and what's a story I'm telling myself. And a lot of the times it's a very Brene Brown approach.
I love her.
I love Brene.
Me too.
Brene
fan club.
Game changer. But like, and learning to not take everything so personally. Like if somebody canceled their plans on me, or if my boyfriend seemed a little distant, or I would internalize that and be like, so I'm not good enough. I'm not fun enough to hang out with. He doesn't want to be around me. When really that person just had a change of plans because something came up, and my boyfriend processes things kind of on his own and like takes a second to do that. So like just tools like that to just be like, what's actually fact here and what's the story I'm telling myself. And then around trauma, you know, really, I've been doing EMDR, and it's really been incredible because you really go into, you put yourself in the scene of a trauma that triggers you to think about. You go in there, it's really tough, but once you're in there, you just start stripping away all of the things that you've developed over time, shame, guilt, whatever the things that aren't real that you're feeling, but they're real to you, but you shouldn't feel shame. You shouldn't feel guilt. This was done to you, or this harmed you. This person is the one that's to blame. You just keep like tearing down those layers, layer by layer. And that's been a huge tool for me, is just kind of getting to the root of a trauma and like plucking out all the other bullshit that's been attached to me over the years and really seeing the actual thing that happened. So that's been a game changer for me as well. And like one more thing, in trauma therapy, they have you create resources, which basically means if you're having a moment where you're triggered, it could literally be you have road rage coming up, like something simple. You talk about a space. Mine is Captiva, Florida. It's this like beautiful remote beach where like nobody's around. I will literally transport myself in my mind there for like 2 seconds. And within those 2 seconds, I am zen, I am better. I'm like, oh, this was stupid. This person cut me off, whatever, moving on. That has been amazing as well. So I highly recommend that.
I love that idea. Sam,
wow.
do you do something similar?
Funny enough, I have my first EMDR appointment in about 2 weeks. For me, it's been a lot of grief in my life. We've lost a lot of family, and I lost my uncle to COVID, and I didn't get to say goodbye, and it was extremely sudden. And it was this very weird thing where I was kind of stuck in my house in California, and they're all in New York, and it didn't feel real. And then I went home. I drove across the country for Christmas, truly like stayed in the car, didn't stop at a hotel, triple tested just to see my family. I just wanted to hug them so badly. December 2020, and we'd lost him in April. And I remember going home, and his birthday's the 23rd of December, and he always stays at my house, and he wasn't there. And it just kind of felt like he was busy, and it didn't hit me as hard until I got back here. And I found TikTok, and somehow TikTok knows me enough to know that I want all the emotional videos about like family and dogs. And so I've just found myself being incredibly triggered by things on social media more than usual, where I'm definitely an empath, but I'm feeling the weight of all of these stories. So I talked to a friend who said a lot of people use it for grief, EMDR. So I'm going to be doing that soon. And I've heard that it also helps a lot with creative blocks. And I've personally found that I'm really, really good at giving advice, and I love being the friend that people call and talk to for hours, but I'm really unkind to myself. So I hope that that helps with it for sure. And I do have therapy. I love it. And in addition to therapy, I'm dealing with someone who was a former A&R who now is a mental health coach for artists. So I talk to her every 2 weeks for an hour just about what I'm doing in my career, where I'm stuck, and how that helps. And I think anyone who is maybe anti-therapy, if you are a musician, you are full of feelings. And I highly recommend that you find someone who doesn't know you and doesn't know the people that you know to bounce those feelings off of, because it's incredibly kind of just purifying. And it helps you, for me, it helps me to compartmentalize my feelings, and really, when I need to be a songwriter, be a songwriter. When I need to feel everything, feel everything. I think there's a balance, and therapy is helping me with that. And I'm very excited now for EMDR after hearing your story. And thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing yours.
So obviously, like, you know, in the music industry, there's a lot of sort of image and how we project ourselves, and there can be a real pressure to always be seen to be successful, and like life is good, and however we portray ourselves on social media. But I just wondered if I could speak to you both about how you have opened up. I mean, it's so incredible that you are here and you are able to be open and actually share what you've been going through, because actually that's incredibly helpful for anyone watching. But I know, you know, when I first started out in the industry 20 years ago, nobody would ever talk about their struggles, like, and no one would reach out to their manager or anyone on their team because they didn't want to be seen to be weak or failing. I wondered if we could just have a chat about that and talk about how you found that process of actually maybe opening up to your team about things that you found hard, or maybe even actually coming out more publicly and being comfortable talking about your struggles more publicly.
Yeah, I think you know real quick if you're with the right team or not when you tell them about your mental health. I've been in a position where I've been honest and open with a team in the past about having some very negative thoughts about myself and being in a rut and being sort of, you know, feeling a little bit shelved by the team I was on. And all it did was further get me shelved, further their mistrust in me, and also just they were like, well, you need to go work on that. You know, you're not ready for any of this. Instead of being supportive and like, hey, it's okay to feel these things. This is okay, you know, and creating a safe space to share that. I'm now in a space with a team that is so supportive of me being open and honest about my mental health. And I think it's just become, you know, part of my brand, because I know how much it helps me to see my heroes speak out when they're having a hard time, or when they have tools they want to share of what makes them feel better. I get so excited when people let me in on their lives. I know how I feel when friends are honest with me about their mental health. I'm way closer to the friends who show me the nitty gritty and the hard times than the friends that just want everything to look perfect. So I want, you know, my fans mental health conversations need to be destigmatized, and they need to be become normal, because I think too many lives are lost, honestly, and too many people are unhappy in their lives to let this continue to be a stigma. I think it's getting better for sure, but I definitely I'm on a rant now, but I definitely find it I definitely find it important to be open with my fan base about it, and just people in general that happen to come across my socials or whatever. I think therapy and just in general being self-aware is so amazing, and it can change your life. So I'm just advocating for that whenever I can.
Yeah. Sam, is that something that you have experienced with your team? Have you got a supportive team around you?
I will say that I have only ever experienced support, which is I'm very thankful for that. But I do know stories similar to yours, Cassadee, where your heart just breaks and you hear it, those things. I don't think I'm at the level yet where I would experience that kind of pressure. And I hope that I have chosen correctly and that I have the right people in my corner, because that breaks my heart. And the woman that I work with says she's trying to implement a system to major labels and things where before an artist goes on a slew of video shoots and commercial shoots, and before they go on tour, they have to have an in-house, you know, psychologist who kind of talks to them and just make sure that they're good. And I've always loved that idea. And I do think that I'm just a big believer that you can't heal it until you feel it. That's like, I've been writing a song with those words in there. And I just think, in addition to what Cassadee said, it's become somewhat of my brand, and it probably wasn't intentional for you. It certainly wasn't for me. It's just, I've realized that the only way I can be an artist, and I really believe this in you too, Cassadee, because I love everything that you make, and I mean that. I think you don't want to wake up and try to remember who you said you were. So the only way you can be an artist is if you truly just write whatever the hell is on your heart. And for you, it sounds like, and for me, I think a true artist just can't help themselves. And you couldn't help yourself but to tell your story. And I think people will either relate to it or they won't, but it's how you create your tribe, and it's how you create what people call the brand, and, you know, that whole business side of things. But writing about mental health, I didn't realize it never really scared me, because I couldn't help myself but to talk about it. And for me, it was from breakups and family loss which then became, okay, Sam, you have a table full of self-help books that you've tried to read and you hate all of them. So like what, and you're going on Instagram and watching all these people tell you how to be happy and it's not working. So maybe we just need to take a beat and figure out who you are and talk about it. And I think it's really cool that you said it needs, I mean, I just think we need to talk about it the way we talk about the weather. It's just be, how are you? How's the, you know, how's the traffic? How's the mess in your head too? Like, how's everything? Let's just like, it should just be a normal thing. Like how you ask about the Yankees in New York. It should be, how are you feeling?
Agreed.
How do you guys manage the boundaries around what is yours and what is available for your fans to know? I mean, if we look at Justin Bieber, for example, another ASCAP member, obviously his story is quite well known about how actually he had to stop doing fan meet and greets, and he had to really pull back and really redefine those boundaries of where he was as a human being, you know, where him as an artist stopped. And obviously we've been talking about some pretty personal things here about, you know, different therapy processes you're both going through, and I'm going through. And I just wondered if you actually, how you found that sort of, that relationship with social media, how you've judged what is okay to share. Have you ever had that experience where you've shared too much and had a vulnerability hangover, as Brene Brown calls it? And, you know, do you have any tips for anyone who's actually navigating this, any artists watching who are actually struggling to find that kind of happy medium?
I kind of want Cassadee to dive in deeper, so I'll go first. I think you probably have a lot more like history with this, but what I will say is I am an oversharer. I'm the person who goes to the party and then I come home and I just like beat myself up for like how different I am at home on my couch in private and then how I was in front of people, because I just don't know how to not talk and give it all away. And the more nervous I get, the more I speak and everything just gets bad. And I feel like I definitely struggle with the line of how much you share and how much you don't need to, because a part of me wants to be so real and so vulnerable that people understand, hey, I know I have this gift to write music, but it's for you too, just as much as it's for me. And I'm here and you can count on me and you can count on my songs. And I think I'm still trying to figure out that line, because all I want to do is give it all away and tell people, hey, I'm here. And I'd love to know, Cassadee, what you do and how you do it. I'd love to just like pass it over, because that's a great question.
Yeah.
Just to jump in, Sam, in response to what you said, again, with Brene Brown fan club, there are two things that she says, which I absolutely love. The first is that share what is vulnerable, not what is intimate.
Yeah, yes.
And the other one is, who has earned the right to hear my story? Not every story has to be shared.
Quote. And I just said,
I just thought I'd throw that in before you came in.
No, you're fine. I just had a moment last week where I've realized I've told a few people a very personal story, and it kind of worked against me recently. And I said, you know what? It is a privilege to have someone, and I don't say this to sound conceited, I really mean it. Like, I think the best asset in my body is my heart. And I really believe that I like truly believe if that could be my face, I'd probably be the prettiest girl on the planet, because I really believe I have a good soul and a good heart. And I've sometimes shared like personal details with people who didn't deserve it, and I didn't know, because I only know how to say, hi, I'm Sam, you know, here's my social security number. Like I said, when we were like, here you go, here's everything. And I realize now that's where Brene Brown has really helped me, is to realize it's okay to be that kind of a person. Just choose who you do it with. But when you're an artist, you want to give it all to your fans because you're just so thankful to have them. I'm so freaking thankful that I'm like, what do I do? Which is why I'm like, Cassadee, please tell me what you do and how you've learned it. I'm like, please, I'm like, tell us.
Cassadee, tell us.
Oh, it's been a process. First of all, you're beautiful, Sam. So
thanks.
With the amazing heart as well. Yeah, I definitely had this like journey with that. I think I shared. I think I'm sharing more now, but in doses. I think as artists, we think we have to choose, okay, we're going to share a lot or we're going to be really private. And I personally think that isn't fair. There are days where I don't want to share anything, where I don't even want to share like what I had for breakfast. And then there are days where I want to share the fact that, you know, I'm having a bad day or I'm having an awesome day. And the awesome thing is when when you have a fan base that really knows you and understands you, they are going to ride those waves with you. And if they don't, and they're like, I want more, I'm entitled to know everything about you, then they're not for you. And they're not healthy, you know, to demand from anyone to know their deepest, darkest things, is not okay. So I love my fans. I share what I feel comfortable sharing on whatever day I feel comfortable sharing it.
Yeah.
And I've never, you know, I've never felt pressured, by, if a fan wants to know something really personal about me. I've just always just listened to my heart and thought, is this appropriate for me to share? Also, when you're about to post something, kind of check your intention behind it. Why are you going to post it? Like, if you're posting something to be cryptic and get people to ask you what's wrong, because you want that sense of community, I would say, if that's what you require in that moment, then do it. But if you can turn to a community that's more personal, where you're keeping things off the internet and more concentrated of the people that love you, that are looking out for your best interests, that know the situation personally, I think that's better. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think it changes, and it's different for every artist, and it's different for people. Like, I know a lot of people that are, that don't have a following, that either are one side of the spectrum, share everything, really they bait their friends and family to ask, and then the other side where they don't share anything. So it's a personal choice for sure, but I feel like for me it changes here and there, and I check your intention before posting stuff, I think is
I love
a good
that
one.
I have a friend who recently said that to me when I was going through like that friend drama that I just mentioned. He said, hey, before you reach out, ask yourself what your intention is behind this. If it's to clear your own conscience, then don't do it. And if it's to actually check in because you want to check in, then do it. And I said, wow, that's so true, because as long as your intentions behind whatever you do are pure, you don't ever feel that backlash of the guilt storm, or I forgot what Brene calls it, how you have that like crazy, the shame storm, where you just feel so ashamed of everything you do. And I think that that's where I realized is, so long as you go into everything leading with compassion and saying, hey, I'm a good person, I just need to check in here, or I need to defend myself here, or whatever, or I don't need to say that today, I don't need to post that, like you just said, and do it with the intention behind it. I totally love that you said that, because I've been hearing it all around me. So that's very cosmic, if you will.
I love that.
Thank you both. I'm sure a lot of people will have found that really, really helpful. Continuing in the vein of trying to help anyone who's watching, what are some of the best resources that you found as music creators and individuals to help you in your career, to help you with your mental health? Just wondered if you could share some of those.
I have a few. I will say I do, as I've said, I have pretty horrid ADHD, so reading books is really hard for me. So I set a little limit where I do a couple of pages a day if I can. But my biggest thing that has saved me is Audible. If anyone lives in Nashville, from what I hear, the traffic is just as bad as it is in LA these days. So Audible has made me love my car. And I have books that I swear by. Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert is a big one.
Oh, yeah.
There's one called Atomic Habits. It's a great one. There's one called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Sorry for cussing. And really anything by Brene Brown. I think I've read every book she's ever had, so I can't even remember the names. And she has a Netflix special. I believe it's called The Call to Courage. Highly recommend. But Audible was a big one for me. And then there's the app Headspace and the app Calm. I love just like, I try to do it every morning. Those are really helpful for actual mental things. And for songwriting, someone gave me really good advice once and said, you know, we always say that once we get really good, we'll be able to write a song with Lady Gaga, or, oh, we wish we could write with John Lennon. And someone said, well, why don't you? You know the chords that they use, you know their music. So sit down, and if you get stuck mentally, put yourself in a process like you're in a co-write with the artist of your dreams, living or dead, and go to one of their favorite songs and reverse the chords around and try to write as if you're writing theirs. You know how they sound. That has been a really strange exercise that has really helped me when I'm mentally a little stuck songwriting. And then otherwise, I think find your tune out thing. What can you do that is just mindless? Whether for me, it's post session, post dinner, it's Real Housewives. Always. It's just like my favorite. Oh, yes. It's my
Yes.
it's the one thing that I'm just like, this is mine. It has nothing to do with me, and I love it. So find the things that take you out of your day to day, and then find the little notions and isms that can help you strengthen them. So lots of action for me personally.
Amazing. Thank you, Sam. There were so many things you mentioned there that I'm going to go and check out after this.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
How about you, Cassadee?
Yeah, all of those are such great suggestions and really align with the stuff that I was thinking too. Podcasts, I love anything Brene Brown, like we were talking about, Unlocking Us and Daring to Lead. Both are great. I think creatively, I think I kind of lean into the days where I feel really stunted and I have nothing to say. I just kind of listen to my body. I think I love mental health and the conversations, but I think oftentimes our bodies feel things that we don't listen to enough. So, and they hold a lot of emotion and trauma. And when we're feeling a certain way in our bodies, it's usually because we're blocked in some way. So like, I just lean into that, and I just will have a day or two or however long with nothing being created. And then when I feel like I'm feeling driven again, I feel like I can deliver better when I've kind of given my creative brain a rest. I also think like I love all mental health books and podcasts and stuff, but like I throw in some smut, as they say, in there, like Housewives. I love like a fiction book. I'm reading The Martian Chronicles again, which I read when I was a kid, and that's been super nostalgic and fun. But yeah, and then like obviously there are hotlines. I know a lot of people don't have access to, they might not have, you know, podcasts or apps or computers or whatever. So hotlines where you can call and talk to somebody. But also just not being afraid to lean on the people around you. I know we talked about maybe not sharing certain things with certain people because they might not have your best interest at heart. But if you really trust somebody and you know that they are there for you, I think that just deepens friendships. It deepens relationships. It makes you a safe space for them to come to when they're going through something tough. So community is really important, and that's just like, you know, face to face like that. There's nothing like that. There's nothing better than human connection. So that's probably my biggest one.
Amazing. Thank you.
It goes to really what you all just said about, someone asked what the Brene Brown quote was, and I think, Lucy, if you want to say it properly, about something about what a privilege it is to like be careful who you're vulnerable with, because not everybody deserves that, right? But that really, I want you to say the quote properly, but just to really piggyback off that real fast, that is the biggest thing. Your circle matters. The people in your life matter, because if you don't have someone who you can go to and just knock on their door and cry, or call them and cry, then you deserve so much more love than what you're getting. And I really believe that it really does matter who you choose to be that way around, but make sure it's reciprocated and try to hold space for those people too. But I think, you know, your tribe is your vibe, or your vibe attracts your tribe, or whatever they say. But I really believe that. And I feel really thankful to have friends who keep me aware of what's going on in the world, and also know when we need to unplug a little bit and say, we feel this a little too deeply. How are you? And, you know, oh, you don't want to make music? Let's have some wine and talk about the Real Housewives, and just like I can't mention the Real Housewives enough. I mean, I love them, but
I've got to check this out. I'm really intrigued. The quote was, share what is vulnerable, not what is intimate. And
yes.
And I've completely forgotten what the second part was. Oh yeah, who has earned the right to hear your story, which is the quote. Just continuing from resources, at the back of this book we have a whole section all about all the different places you can go to get information online, and it's everything from physical warm-ups before practicing to mental health advice. Now this book is geared towards the UK, but all that information is there for free. We've published all the resources online for free, and it's soundadvicebook.com/resources, and you've got that entire list there. But as I say, we're hoping to publish very shortly a US version, which will have all the US sort of equivalent versions of those sites. So I've just realized that we are pretty much out of time. But just before we end, I wondered if you could both share something very quickly that you're really looking forward to in the next few months in your career.
Really quick, soundadvice.com/resources. I'm putting it into the comments for people.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's soundadvice.com/resources. That's really kind. Thanks, Sam.
Cool.
Cassadee, what are you looking forward to?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, soundadvicebook.com. But yeah, that's sorry.
This is why I can't be a secretary. They're way too talented. I'm not good at it.
That's really kind of you. Yeah, Cassadee, tell me quickly something you're really looking forward to.
Yeah, I wrote an album last year that is finished, and I just got the masters back. So I'm going to be releasing that in the fall. Stay tuned for the release date. We're working on that announcement now, and just new music. I'm super excited that I've kind of found my footing in the pop punk country realm that makes me just so happy. Amazing. And feels really natural and authentic. So I can't wait.
Can't wait to hear it. And Sam?
Oh yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
So I don't know how to pin, but thank you, J. Gibson. Also, I love you for trying to help me to put that comment in. I just opened my first merch store. If anybody wants to support, I made really cute bucket hats because I love bucket hats. I'm actually going to Nashville for the entire month of September. So Cassadee, if you are around, I'd love to meet you and hug you and maybe write some songs. So my merch is up. The Medicine EP is out, which for me was actually about self-love and healing and loss. And I just put out an entire acoustic version of that. And I have new music coming out soon. It's honestly kind of leaning a little bit into the emo world, which I love. So Cassadee, I seriously can't wait to see you in person. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. I love ASCAP so much, and I really appreciate you guys for always having me and supporting me. I think it's really cool. And anyone down here, if you are an ASCAP member, you're in the right place. And just know we are all a team. And thank you for all your comments and all the things. And Cassadee, I really mean it. 6 months was the soundtrack to pretty much my entire. So I love that I'm here. Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for having me, really.
I love all this love. Cassadee
so much love.
And Sam, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in and who's listening, and for all the comments and support. We're really grateful. And thank you to ASCAP for allowing us this experience to shine a light on music and mental health. So let's keep the conversation going. Please feel free to connect with all of us on social media. I'm sure we've got all our handles on here somewhere. And visit ascapexperience.com for more great wellness programming in the weeks ahead. Okay, lovely to meet you both. So great to chat. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you all.